I just hitchhiked from Uruguay to here in Buenos Aires. It took an entire day, but it included one of the longest rides I've had in a long time, a surprise beach visit, and an unexpected, miserable evening walking around Buenos Aires in the dead of night. So what happened yesterday? Who did I meet along the way? And did I stay consistent with habits and things I have to do along the way? I'll explain in just a moment. So last night, I woke up in wonderful Paysandú. I stayed with a family and I was treated to a breakfast of champions. I'm talking bacon, egg, toast, and a very peculiar tasting and feeling kind of jam. It wasn't fruit, but it was some kind of potato. And when I cut into it, it felt very soft. And then on the bread, it was a mixture of potato and jam. It was very odd, but very nice. What a bizarre, very filling, very nice breakfast. And then in the morning, I edited, made some videos, bunch of boring stuff, while also connecting with people I stayed with here in Paysandú. Then it was time to head off. It was around 12 o'clock and I wanted to make some distance. But before that, with the sun, we explored a bit more Paysandú. Paysandú is a city that really surprised me. My first impression of it was it's very American, looks very outdated, but also very historic, lots of colonial buildings. It was a pretty bizarre city, and he gave me a full-on tour, exploring loads of streets and checking out various spots in the city. I'd seen a little bit the night before, but seeing it in the daytime, seeing all the streets was pretty nice. And I got to know all about the city as well as more about Uruguay and its life and things like that. And then the tour ended right by Rio, Uruguay, marking the border across to Argentina. Now, what I didn't realize when I arrived at the border crossing, usually there's 2 border crossings, but this one there was just one. So I entered in, and without even seeing any flags, I crossed the river, and there I was into Argentina. But before that, I came across a local who stopped his car on the road and asked where I'm going. I said, I'm going to Argentina. And he then spontaneously offered me a ride across the bridge. I thought he wasn't going too far. It turns out he was going to the next major town of Colón. And the reason he was going to Argentina was because it's so much cheaper there. For fuel, for food, for experiences, for everything. It is the Disneyland of Uruguay. You go there for the cheap things and you leave feeling content. Well, I was definitely pleased to see Argentina again, and pleased to meet another wonderful local who was just going to Argentina to have some time alone and for the cheap prices. We got chatting a little bit, and he got his daughter on the phone to talk with me a little bit, but he wasn't going very far, and very soon we're arriving into Colón. I didn't want to explore the city, but instead he dropped me off right where the city begins, and right there is a rather impressive but rather bland tourist sign, Colón, in a bright yellow sun, and beside it there are 2 tourist signs with various places all over Argentina. So you really get an impression of just how big the country is. I got chatting with a family there. They seemed pretty nice, but then I had to focus on the mission at hand, hitchhiking south towards Buenos Aires. And as per usual, I walked up the road, stuck my thumb out, smiled, and waited to see who would pick me up. But little did I know, the next people to give me a ride were probably the most influential people that whole day, because I'd end up spending a lot of time with them on the road. So it was a nephew and uncle duo. They were going to Concepción del Uruguay to go to a beach with their family, and they said they can drop me off at Concepción del Uruguay. And I said it's absolutely fine, it's on the route, and I don't mind a I don't mind a relatively short distance to Concepcion del Uruguay. And we start talking in the car, and before I know it, we've arrived. They mention they're going to Buenos Aires later in the day, and at the same time invite me to join them to Concepcion del Uruguay. We can go to the beach together, right by the river, and enjoy a bit of time together. And I don't like spending a lot of time in beaches, but they mentioned they're only spending 1 hour there, so I felt obliged and I joined them on a spontaneous adventure. I love spontaneous twists and turns, and hitchhiking always brings a lot of them. So I decided to join them, and turns out it was a pretty nice trip. Usually when someone mentions they're only going somewhere for an hour, it's usually an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. But credit to them, they were spot on. We were there 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and that was the time to leave. But before then, I was there with the family. I didn't take a dip in the water, but they gave me a fair bit of chorizo, some cheese. I dropped like 2 or 3 pieces on the sand, and a bit of bread as well to have, as well as a little top up of some sun cream. So it's nice to have a chill break at a completely new part of Argentina I've yet to explore. Loads of people were there at the beach enjoying the sun, and I was there just reflecting on the trip so far. And then when it was time to leave, it was time to go to Buenos Aires. Now, this is maybe a more boring decision to take on such a spontaneous, exhilarating hitchhiking adventure, but considering they took me to the beach, they took me to a new place, it only made sense that I joined them to Buenos Aires. I knew that if I accepted someone else, they would probably be going to Buenos Aires anyway. And while I love meeting new people, I decided to have a slightly less eventful day and continue with them to Buenos Aires. Besides, we hadn't made much conversation. I didn't get to know them that much, and maybe I could discover more about them on the journey there. And that I definitely did. So the language barrier was difficult, but we are talking about my travels. They were interrogating me on what I'm doing, if I'm scared, if my family is scared, if anyone that I know is scared of me traveling, as well as my life, my travels, all that kind of usual sort. But I wanted to get to know them a bit more as well. I found out they like Formula One. I found out what team they support in football, which honestly I don't really care, but it's nice to pass the time, to get to know what gets people going, what drives people, what interests them. And what I learned on the journey was they do like to laugh a lot together. They have this infectious banter between each other. They were always laughing at anything I was saying or anything that was happening. Something was funny and I didn't quite know what it was. And I knew they were talking about me, so I interpreted this as them taking the piss. I felt like they were taking the piss out of me a lot, and while I can tolerate a bit of that sort of thing, due to the language barrier, I wasn't sure what exactly they meant. But due to the language barrier, it also led to some funny moments of both of us saying completely wrong things, and that was definitely fuel for some more laughter. Something that really took me by surprise was we were driving along, it was an empty landscape, and the guy in front says, "Horny." I'm thinking, sorry, what? Did I hear that right? He's like, "Horny, horny." I get thinking, does he mean honey? No. Does he mean, what does he mean? It turns out he's talking about caballos, horses. So he made an absolutely terrible blunder of mispronouncing an innocent animal to something completely different, if you know English. That took me by surprise. And yeah, as the journey continued, I knew we were getting closer and closer to Buenos Aires. Now, Buenos Aires is a massive city, so where the city starts, it takes about an hour or so until you get into the center. It's a massive city with lots of rather boring scenery along the way, but I like looking out the window and seeing the landscape change and knowing that the closer we get, the more advertisements we see, the closer we are to Buenos Aires. And then that marks really the end of the road for us. It is time for me to explore Buenos Aires, to find somewhere to stay, and for us to say farewell. I don't remember much, but I remember leaving the vehicle, really unsure of what to do. I knew I wanted to go to the dentist's office to find out information for tomorrow, because the day after I was going to visit the dentist. But other than that, I didn't know anyone who I could meet that night or anywhere I could stay. It was an adventure, but one I was slightly nervous for, because I know Buenos Aires is one of the worst cities for sleeping outside in. But little did I know just how bad it was that evening. I won't reveal too much. I will save most of the nightly adventure stories for the next episode. That might reveal just how late I was up. But it was the evening, I was hungry. I went to a few restaurants and places in Recoleta, and I was absolutely astonished by the amount of kindness I received. Virtually everywhere I asked, they gave me some food, and to the point where I was full, I was content, and I definitely wasn't hungry. And that is always a nice feeling when you might not have a place to stay, but I certainly wasn't hungry that night. The more I walked and walked around these open spaces, the less I was sure of where to actually stay. I spent a good amount of time contemplating where to go. Do I spend the whole night, up all night, in bars, in 24-hour places? That way I can get some work done, but it will mean I'm incredibly tired the following day. Or do I find a decent place to stay outside, get some sleep, and wake up really early for the dentist tomorrow? I found out from the dentist I have to wake up extremely early, so I knew that if I were to be based somewhere tonight, I'd have to be based near the dental department at the hospital, the university here in the center. So I was contemplating, do I enjoy the night, explore, have a bit of an adventure, meeting people, or do I do the sensible thing and find somewhere reasonably safe to stay outside in Buenos Aires? I wanted to find somewhere safe to stay, okay? I know how important sleep is, and I knew I'd feel dreadful if I didn't get any sleep that night. But let's just say that I didn't end up finding a suitable place. There were homeless people, there were loads of people walking around. There was nowhere that I felt secure for sleeping in. But where would I end up that night? You have to find out in the next episode. Okay, so a quick rundown. My favorite story of that day was just the sheer unexpectedness of receiving so much food that evening. And I was chatting with one of the girls that worked at the bar. She seemed very friendly, and I like having short random interactions like that. The hitchhike heroes of the day were that nephew and uncle duo who took me so far across Entre Rios into Buenos Aires. They helped me a lot in terms of covering the distance, and they shared a bit of food as well. We stopped somewhere, we had a bit of a sandwich, he shared some food, which was very much appreciated. Hospitality heroes, it's contention between the girl who gave me some orange juice in one of the bars. We ended up chatting a little bit, and I noticed in each of the places I was at, the staff were very friendly, they gave me food, they were wonderful. They may not have been so warm in conversation, but I very much appreciated the help. Not only that, but staying with the family in the morning and them being so chill and so accommodating, letting me edit my videos. It was a great way to start the day, and I'm very, very grateful. The lesson I learned for yesterday was I may be able to stealth camp in every country around the world, in every city I've been to, but Buenos Aires is a whole different kind of fish. I do not recommend sleeping outside in Buenos Aires unless you are in the suburbs. If you're in the center where you can't really walk anywhere, remotely ideal within 2 hours, yeah, you won't find somewhere to stay, unfortunately, unless you want to make friends with the local homeless people, which is, it's an option, it's a way to meet new people. I will say the homeless people are friendly here, but I don't trust my things around them. I spoke with one of them and they invited me to sleep near them. I'm not too sure about that. I'm not too sure about that. But overall, it was a great day. It was a day hitchhiking into Buenos Aires. My thoughts and feelings there were really a bit of intrepidation. It was the start of massive hitchhiking trip all the way down to Patagonia. It was nice to leave Uruguay despite me enjoying it there. And yeah, also nervous about staying consistent with the things that were important to me, as well as traveling, as well as documenting my adventures. This on to the final chapter. Was I consistent with habits? Unfortunately not. I did not meditate. I did not spend any time applying to jobs, finding ways to make a living. But I have continued with these videos, and I say that's a major success in my books. We've got to appreciate the small wins, no matter how small and insignificant they may be to most people. For me, I find consistency very hard. So I'm pretty proud of myself for continuing this momentum of videos. Anyway, that's it. I'm here in Buenos Aires. Today's story will come tomorrow. That's it for now. I'm going to figure out what I'm doing tonight. I'll let you know in tomorrow's story. That's it. If you want to keep following these stories of me hitchhiking in South America and absolutely being lost and having no clue what I'm doing, then like this video as if you are hitchhiking. We're a bunch of hitchhikers out here. If you are experienced, if you're a newbie, you are welcome in this community, and follow along on these rather boring, hopefully interesting videos here in South America. That's it for now. See you in tomorrow's video. Bye.